They say men don't cry in the desert. But when Miles Brennan stumbled on her, tied to a broken post, half awake, dress ripped, dried blood crusted at her temple, and at her feet 2 wailing newborns wrapped in scraps, something inside him snapped. It wasn't the heat, though the Mojave sun beat down hard that day, burning like a hammer. It wasn't the quiet either. He'd lived alone near Joshua Tree for 5 years and never minded the stillness. It was the sound of those babies, thin, tired, like they already knew the world didn't care, and the way she didn't give in, not even left out there to die. There are things a man sees out here that stick to him. Stolen cattle, sure. Drifters, soured by liquor and bad luck, happen all the time. But this wasn't random meanness. This was chosen. Someone tied a woman and her 2 brand new infants under open sky to cook and fade. No note. No warning. Just thrown away. He didn't know who she was. Didn't know what darkness followed her. I didn't need to. He cut the ropes, scooped the babies against his chest, inside his shirt, lifted her with both arms. She weighed next to nothing, like the world had already decided she didn't count. Back at his cabin, he did the things he knew by heart. Fed the twins goat's milk, wrapped her in a scratchy wool blanket, kept a steady fire going. No questions. No speeches. Just heat, wood, water, and patience. When her voice finally creaked out, rough as gravel, "Don't let them take my girls," he didn't ask who they were. He simply nodded. In a world where some men tie mothers to posts, someone has to pick the other side. That first night Miles didn't sleep. He kept his boots on and sat by the flames, tracking every breath she drew. Outside, Mojave winds threw sand at the cabin walls. Inside, it felt like time held still. By sunrise she stirred, eyelids low, voice scratchy as sandpaper. She said her name was Grace. No last name offered. None required. He gave one quiet nod. That was enough for both. Then she said the words that raised the hair on his arms. "They'll come looking. They always do." Miles didn't flinch. He poured a warm tin of water and waited. She stared into it like it held things she wished would sink and vanish. Grace had been married once. Not happily. Not safely. Her husband died in a fire. Some called it an accident, but people whispered another story. After that, his kin got strange, real holy on the outside, but twisted at the core. Her father-in-law ran a far-off church in Arizona. Name was Caleb Whitmore. Silver hair, black eyes, thunder in his voice. He preached that women were meant for pain, and babies were blessings only when they were boys. When Grace delivered twin girls, he called it a curse. Said God was striking them down. Next thing she knew, she was bound in a wagon, barefoot, no goodbyes, just hushed prayers and the hiss of desert wind. "They were going to leave me out there to die," she said, eyes on the wall. Maybe they already did. Miles didn't reply. He stepped outside and split more wood than usual, sharp strokes that said what words could not. When he came back, he held out a folded flannel. She didn't ask if it was clean. She held it like it mattered anyway. Outside, 3 crows rode circles in the hot air. Inside, the twins slept bundled near the stove's warmth. But calm is a short guest in a place like this. 2 days later, dust rose on the horizon. Miles was out back chopping kindling when he saw it, a low, slow ribbon of grit twisting along the canyon road. Not the wind's doing. Horse dust. He wiped his brow, leaned on the axe, stared long. 3 riders, too far for faces, close enough to sour his gut. He walked in as quietly as ever. Grace folded ragged cloth beside the fire. The twins fussed, cheeks flushed from the heat. "They're here," he said. She didn't ask who. She already knew. They didn't shout or race in. They rode up like they owned every rock and weed. The lead man, white beard, black hat, voice like gravel soaked in vinegar, was Caleb Whitmore. Father-in-law, preacher, judge, jury, and the boots to carry it out. Behind him, 2 cousins with hard jaws and eyes colder than dry stone. Caleb didn't bother to get down. "That woman belongs to me," he said. Miles didn't blink. He stepped off the porch. "She's not property," he said. "She's family." Caleb spat the word. "She took something that's mine." "You mean the babies?" Miles asked. Caleb hissed, They were born under a curse. Not too late to fix what's broken. That was enough. Miles tilted his head slightly, measuring the distance to a grave only one man knew he'd be digging. "No," he said, "but it's too late for you." The preacher's hand twitched toward his rifle, but Miles was already a step closer. No gun drawn, just that quiet certainty that stops other men cold. "You take a shot," Miles said, voice level. "You better not miss." Silence stretched. Caleb smirked. "You'll regret this." "No," Miles said. "You will." The three turned away without another word, but the message stuck like a thorn. They'd return, and next time they wouldn't come to talk. That night, Miles braced the door and checked the windows twice. Grace sat at the table feeding the twins, face pale but steady. "You didn't have to face him," she said. "Didn't do it for you," Miles answered. He looked at the babies. "I did it for them." Some men wait a lifetime to be useful. Others see a storm forming and start building a wall. If you've been with this story since the first breath, I figure you've got a little storm fighter in you, too. And if this kind of tale hits home, go on and tap that subscribe button. Keeps the fire going and the stories alive. A week passed after the Whitmores rode off, but their weight remained. Whenever a bird skimmed low, Grace flinched. Whenever Miles came home a little late, her chest tightened. The babies didn't care about shadows. They grew. Rosier cheeks, stronger lungs, soft laughs in their sleep, as if they had no idea what the world tried to do to their mama. For a while life found a small beat. Miles fixed fence boards. Grace cut old flour sacks into shirts. They ate beans and cornbread and sat on the porch as the heat fell away. He didn't ask for anything from her, not even answers. He let her breathe. Somehow, that healed more than any doctor's hands could. But peace in the Mojave is like a quick summer shower. There and gone. One dusty rider from the south came through one afternoon, bound for San Bernardino. He left a letter with Grace's name scratched across it in slanted ink. It was from her cousin in Colorado. Word had spread. They'd heard what happened. There was land waiting, a small inheritance, a house with a real roof, a nursemaid, a safer future. If she left now, she could catch the last train east in 4 days. Grace didn't cry. She sat on the porch that evening, letter in hand, watching the sun leak down behind the Joshua trees. Miles came up quiet, saw the paper, held his tongue. She finally asked, soft as a breeze, "Do you want me to stay?" He answered, "I want you to stay." That night she lay between the twins, counting their little breaths. She thought about the road, about safety, about starting fresh. She also thought about a man who never dug into her past, yet carved space for her in his present. Somewhere in that hush, she learned that starting over isn't always leaving. Sometimes it's choosing where to plant your feet. The train never met her. Grace never packed, never saddled a horse. She woke early, made coffee, fed her girls, and set a needle through a torn shirt Miles had left on the porch. Big choices aren't always shouted. Sometimes they're sewn into quiet mornings with thread and care. Miles didn't ask again. He didn't need to. The next day, he carved her name into a porch beam. Small, plain, enough to tell the house who it sheltered. But calm won't settle long where evil remembers the path. That Friday, a dust storm rolled in, and with it the Whitmores, 5 riders deep, all armed. Caleb rode in the center, still in black, voice still sour as vinegar. This time, he didn't bring talk. Miles spotted them from the bluff, grabbed his rifle, and kept silent. Grace stood on the porch, a baby on her hip. The other slept inside. "They aren't here to scare us," she said. "No," Miles replied. "They came to finish it." The men dismounted like they were stepping onto their own yard. Caleb moved forward, eyes sliding across the porch boards, then spoke. "I warned you. Boy, you pick your side." Miles didn't answer. He lowered the rifle slow and stepped into the dust. One of Caleb's men, a wiry fellow with nervous hands, yanked up a shotgun and fired. Boom. The blast went wide, spooking the goats behind the shed. Before anyone could blink, a rifle cracked from the ridge, a neighbor's shot, clean through the shooter's hand. He screamed, dropped his gun, fell to his knees, blood pattering the sand. Everything froze. Then, from the canyon edges, 5 riders appeared, neighbors with rifles steady, eyes like flint. Caleb looked around, counting. Outnumbered, outgunned, standing open. "You brought a posse," he spat. Miles didn't even blink. "No," he said. "They came on their own." Grace stepped down then, baby balanced on her hip, boots steady on the packed earth, face set like stone. "Hear me playing," she said. "One more step at this house, and you're no preacher. You're a coward hiding behind a sermon." The quiet that followed felt like thunder pressing on the chest. Caleb's jaw jumped. He stared at his injured man, at Grace's unshaking eyes, at the armed neighbors. He saw the truth. The old rules weren't welcome here. He turned without a word, swung back into his saddle, and rode away. The others followed, but not before the youngest, Juan, looked back and tipped his hat to Grace. Night fell with a steady fire. The girls slept easy. Miles sat beside Grace on the porch and carved another name into the beam, this time his own. She glanced over. "Putting down roots now," she said. He smiled. "Just making sure this house knows us. Family isn't only blood. Sometimes it's the ones who stand shoulder to shoulder when the world tries to break your peace." Maybe that's the real tale here. Love doesn't always shout. It isn't flawless. It just keeps showing up and sticking around. So I have to ask you, if someone came for your peace, would you hold the line? And if stories like this remind you of what matters, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and tell me in the comments. If you were Grace, would you have stayed? Because sometimes the quietest love fights the loudest wars.